So now we're going to talk about proportions real quick. So there are two different types of proportions. There's a direct proportion and an indirect proportion. It's relatively easy to remember the two, but directly proportional means that dividing one quantity by the other gives a constant value. Okay, so this is written as y is proportional to x. Okay, that little weird looking symbol that looks like a fish basically is proportional to. Okay, so density is one of these types of values. If you take the mass and you take the volume and divide them, you should always get 2.70 for aluminum, okay? Or roughly, somewhere around there, okay? And that doesn't matter, how many of these measurements you take. Right? If you have different masses and then you measure the volumes of those and you divide them out, you should always get the same thing. Okay, so I know this says that it's dividing one quantity by the other and then it doesn't look like it's dividing, but basically if you do y divided by x, you're always going to get some value, let's say z. That looks horrible, but okay, so in this case, your y and your x are the only ones that can change. The z is going to be a constant. So why don't I actually put that as a c, because it is a constant. Okay, and so if you graph the two values next to each other, right, like we did over here, okay, you're going to get a straight line. Okay. Now this is a straight line going up because you have your volume and your mass increasing at the same time, so on and so forth, okay? But if you were to actually calculate the formula for this line, you'd get one that's y equals, in the format of y equals mx plus b, okay? B in this case would be 0 because that is your y-intercept and it goes through 0.00. Okay, so it would be y equals mx. So in this case, again, if you look at this formula, you can get the m on its own by doing y divided by x equals m. And look at that. Same format right there. And in this case, your m is your density. Okay? So, inverse proportions. These ones are a little bit weirder. So, inverse proportions is when the product of two quantities is a constant. Okay? So again, this doesn't really look like you're multiplying them, but if you take your x and you put it up, so it's a y times x, you're going to get your constant. So it's read as y is proportional to 1 divided by x, or 1 over x. So in this case, we've got pressure and volume at a constant temperature. Okay, so your temperature is constant, pressure and volume are changing. Okay? I know it looks really weird, but again, in this one, you're not necessarily going to see that straight line. Okay? So you can see that this one is curved, and you're not, pressure times volume here is your constant. Okay, so again, this is not in the form of y equals mx plus b, which is why you don't get your straight line. Okay, because y equals mx plus b is the formula for a straight line on a graph, right? Okay, so that is it for chapter 2. Nice little short chapter with all the math.